my name is Louise Williamson. I'm a member of the Risk Board at the IFOA and I'm a director at Willis Watson.
Hi Louise, thank you for coming in today. So before we start talking about why you obtained the CERA credential, could you give us a brief history of your career and how you ended up in your current role?
So initially I went into traditional defined benefit pension consulting role. I was supporting trustees of pension plans and also corporates. I did some really exciting projects as part of that work. I took part in some of the first pension increase exchange and enhanced transfer value exercises in the industry. And it was at that point that I really appreciated the impact of data on pension schemes. I was given the opportunity to move into a newly formed data solutions business. It was there that we did some really interesting new work for data, realising the importance not only in terms of saving time when we were working with pension schemes, but also making a real financial impact. I was still using my actuarial skills. We were doing projects such as calculating contingent spouses pensions for schemes that were looking to do a buyout, and I was also working on the first GMP reconciliation exercises. It was following that I was offered the chance to join a new team who was setting up a defined contribution master trust within the business, and I moved into that area, and that was where my real interest in risk came to the forefront. I was carved myself out a role within the first couple of years working specifically in risk and compliance.
And how did you find the crossover between pensions, or starting in pensions and then going into the risk area? Was there a steep learning curve? Or?
I think it was really interesting making that move from working solely in pensions to a much broader risk role. I think the work I had done before that laid down some really good foundations in terms of the approach that I would take to picking up a lot of those areas, my familiarity with a lot of regulations and rules that were required, as well as lots of the manipulation I had to do with figures, etc. when I was looking at reserves. But they were not the same, and it did take me a little while to kind of use my skill set and try to apply that into a new field, which was both really interesting and really challenging at the same time.
I can imagine. And what attracted you to obtaining the CERA designation?
So I took a bit of a look at my career and the role I was doing to date, and I looked at the responsibilities I had. They were very diverse. They were covering risk registers, working with audit and risk subcommittees, monitoring new regulations such as GDPR, as well as monitoring reserves, as I mentioned. And I looked at that and I thought, how does that map to the qualification that I have? How does that fit in with my actuarial role? And I thought, I'm sure it does, but it was just very different to the work I'd been doing when I qualified as a pensions actuary. And I went back and revisited the ST9 syllabus and thought, this is just a perfect match. So I thought if I could do this, the really great thing there would be that I would have a mirror that reflected the skills I had learnt on the job with something I could then evidence on paper. Not only that, I think one of the great things about ST9 was that it gave me a real chance to see what the rest of the industry was doing, what best in practice was doing, and it made sure that I got a far wider skill set than I would have had if I was solely going by my own experiences to date.
Okay, so you mentioned that the experience you gained through the workplace definitely helps with the ST9 exam. How did you find going back and studying for the exam? Because a lot of our members, qualified members, find it's something they don't really want to do. How did you find it?
I think I was quite enthusiastic to go back and learn something new, but at the same time it was 10 years since I qualified, so there was that initial culture shock where I thought, oh actually I do need to go back. A lot had changed in those 10 years, obviously personally and professionally, to then go back into that study mode. But at the same time, the study pack arrived, it was very familiar to me, I was used to the layout, the formats, and I soon sort of forgot, and it was like nothing had really changed. I kind of fell back into my old habits. I did what I do best. I wrote a plan so that I could get through the chapters in time to have some study time with the mock exams at the end. And I did find I fell into a real pattern. I did need to sort of be dedicated to it and want to do it. But I think I had that motivation, and I actually, really enjoyed doing the course once I got into it.
Okay. And did you get any support from your employer whilst you were preparing for the exam?
yes, my employer was really supportive of me taking the exam. They could see the value of the qualification. It supported my fit and properness for the role that I was taking on for the Master Trust. They also paid for the exam and all the associated expenses with it.
That's great. And how did you find the one-day's CERA seminar that you took once you passed the exam?
I think the seminar was a really good way to consolidate everything that we had done through the bookwork. Not only was it a great chance to meet my contemporaries working in a variety of risk-related fields, there were also some professionals there on the day who we could talk to and draw on their experiences. I think one of the aspects of the day that I really enjoyed was the case studies. I think it's really important to know both the opportunities that working in a risk field presents as well as the limitations. I think for lots of us, there isn't always one right answer. What I think is really important is pulling in lots of data that is available to you, doing as much research you can, looking out to the wider market and experiences, and about going on that journey. And if you've done that journey well, the outcome will follow.